Hey everyone, welcome back to another Canadian real estate market update here on Bald Prairie Real Estate. My name is Matthew Pfeifer. I'm a real estate agent from Regina, Saskatchewan, and it may be a brand new year, but 2022 is starting out to look a lot like 2021 did, except even worse for buyers. You want to know how that's going to impact the 2022 Canadian real estate market update? Don't worry, I've already done a predictions video. I'll put up one of them fancy pop-up cards, and as always, the link will be in the description. You should check that one out. We're looking back at the last month's stats here for 2021, and the numbers are pretty shocking. Some of these numbers are going to blow your mind. What's going on right now in the Canadian housing market? If you are thinking about buying a house this year in Canada and want to get set up with the best real estate agent in your market, don't worry, I got you covered. In the description below, you're going to see a link to my calendar where you can book me in for a consult. I'm going to give you a call, learn about what you're looking for, and get you set up with a fantastic agent to make sure you get that awesome house for a great deal as well. As with all these Canadian real estate market update videos, I always have this broken up into chapters, so check out the YouTube timeline below to jump directly to the city that you're most interested in. But as always, let's start off with another terrible joke. What do you call a mistake on a tombstone? A grave mistake. If you have a terrible joke that I can use in a future episode of Bald Prairie Real Estate, put it in the comments below. And like this video if you like keeping up to date on the Canadian housing market, and subscribe. The button's right there if you haven't done so already. There were 438 homes sold last month in Victoria. That's down 31% from last year. And it's actually down 7% from their 5-year average, where typically there's about 470 homes sold in a month. There's around 400 houses that were put up for sale last month. That is down 16% from last year and down 5% from the 5-year average, where typically there's just over 420 houses put up for sale. Active listings, that means houses for sale right now, 652, down 49% from last year and down 60% from the 5-year average, where typically there's about 1,600 houses for sale at this time of year. That means months of inventory is down to 1 month. That is down from last month's 1.2. The composite benchmark price in Victoria is just about $900,000, and that is up 22% from last year. A quick recap for the year versus the 5-year average. Sales were up 19%. Listings were down 3.3%. No shocker then, the prices are up nearly 20% in Victoria because of the supply and demand imbalance. In Vancouver, there were just under 2,700 houses sold in the month. That is down 13% from last year, but it is up 36% versus that 5-year average, where typically there's just under 2,000 homes sold. Right about 1,950 homes were put up for sale last month in Vancouver. That is down 19% from last year, but it is up 13% from their 5-year average, where typically about 1,700 houses are put up for sale. Right now, there's about 5,200 homes for sale in Vancouver. That's down 39% from last year, down 38% from the 5-year average. Usually there's closer to 8,400 homes for sale this time of year. That means months of inventory in Vancouver is 2.1. That's exactly the same as what it was last month. $1.235 million is that composite benchmark price. Again, composite is all property types combined into one metric, and that is up 18% from last year. It shouldn't come as a shocker to anyone that the Vancouver real estate market was very active last year. Sales were up 40% over the 5-year average, but the number of homes that went up for sale was also up about 14% over that 5-year average. So even though there was way more homes for sale than they would typically see, they had even more demand, and that's why you saw prices rise like they did in Vancouver last year. These Calgary numbers are absolutely astounding. 1,700 homes sold in a month. That's up 45% from last year and up 83% over their 5-year average. Typically, they don't even see 1,000 houses sold in the month of December. There were over 1,200 homes put up for sale in the month. That's up 5% from last year and up 13% from that 5-year average, where there's about 1,100 houses typically put up for sale. With 2,600 homes for sale right now in Calgary, that is down 29% from last year and down 45% from that 5-year average of about 4,700 homes for sale. That means months of inventory in Calgary is currently at 1.5 very much a seller's market, and it's down from last month's 1.9 months of inventory. The composite benchmark price in Calgary continues to increase, now about $464,000. That's 3 months in a row we've seen prices increase when typically we'd expect to see prices decreasing this time of year in Calgary, and now it's up 10% over last year. Home sales were up 71% in 2021 versus their 5-year average. The number of homes that went up for sale was also up 21%. Just absolutely crazy numbers in Calgary. In fact, that 71% increase in home sales versus their 5-year average is the biggest increase of any city in Canada. Something's going on in Calgary because a lot of people are buying houses there right now. There were 1,300 homes sold last month in Edmonton. That is up 19% from last year and up 53% from their 5-year average. They typically don't even see 900 houses sold in the month. There were 1,400 homes put up for sale in the month. That is up 9% from last year and up 20% from their 5-year average, where typically there's about 1,170 homes put up for sale in the month. There are under 4,500 homes for sale in Edmonton right now. That's down 10% from last year and down 21% from their 5-year average. Typically you see about 5,600 homes for sale this time of year. That means months of inventory right now is at 3.1. Last month was actually 2.5. The composite benchmark price in Edmonton is about $340,000, and that is up 5% from last year. There were 44% more homes sold in 2021 in Edmonton than the 5-year average. Listings were also up 14% versus the 5-year average as well. So much like pretty much every city in Canada, sales easily outpaced those record numbers of listings coming up for sale. I've been working as a real estate agent in Regina for 10 years now, and not once have I seen a month where we had more sales than new listings that came out. Well, now I can check that one off the box. There were 201 homes sold last month. That is up 1% versus last year and up 47% versus the 5-year average, where typically there's about 139 homes sold in the month of December in Regina. The 200 homes put up for sale in the month, that is down 14% from last year. It is up 10% from the 5-year average, where typically we see about 183 homes put up for sale in the month. There are about 770 homes for sale right now in Regina, and that is down 2% from last year and down 23% from the 5-year average, where typically there'd be about 1,000 houses up for sale at this time of year. That means months of inventory in Regina is at 3.9. The composite benchmark price in Regina is up about 6% from last year. It's $260,000. Generally, December and January is when we see prices at their lowest. For the year versus the 5-year average, sales were up 34% in Regina, and the number of new listings was also up 11%. So we saw record numbers of new listings come on the market, but buyers, there were far more of them, and they bought up all those houses. That's why we saw prices start to rise in Regina in 2021. There were 267 homes sold last month in Saskatoon. That's actually down 3% from last year, but up 41% from their 5-year average, where typically is about 207 homes sold in the month. Just under 300 homes were put up for sale last month in Saskatoon. That's down 15% from last year and down 9% from their 5-year average. We usually see about 320 homes put up for sale in the month. The 820 homes for sale to start the month in Saskatoon, that's down 10% from last year and down 41% from their 5-year average. Usually there's closer to 1,400 homes for sale at this time of year, and that means months of inventory in Saskatoon is 3.1. The composite benchmark price is up 8% in Saskatoon, now $320,000. Normally we would see prices declining this time of year. We're seeing a couple of months in a row now, we're seeing prices increase in Saskatoon. Through the course of 2021, home sales were up 65% versus their 5-year average. So a lot of sales happened compared to what they would normally see in Saskatoon. And the number of homes for sale was also up 17% versus the 5-year average over the course of the year. So Saskatoon real estate market was extremely active. In Winnipeg, there were 926 homes sold in the month. That's down 5% from last year. 757 homes came up for sale. That's down 16% from last year. There were just under 1,700 homes for sale to start the month in Winnipeg. That's down 27% from last year. 1.8 months of inventory, which is the same as last month. And that benchmark price in Winnipeg is $325,000, and that is up about 11% from last year. There were over 6,000 homes sold last month in Toronto. That is down 16% from last year, but up 18% versus the 5-year average, where normally about 5,000 homes sell in a month. A little over 5,200 homes were put up for sale last month in Toronto, and that is down 12% from last year. It is up 7% from their 5-year average, where normally there's somewhere around 4,800 homes put up for sale in the month. Okay, you better sit down for this next part because this next number is really scary. 3,223. That's how many homes are for sale right now in Toronto. That's down 59% from last year and down 64% from the 5-year average. Normally there's about 8,800 homes for sale at this time of year in Toronto. The average for the last 20 years is over 12,000 homes for sale at this time of year. That means the months of inventory in Toronto is 0.5, 2 weeks worth of inventory, down from last month's 0.7. This is heading the wrong direction in Toronto. It's getting even more competitive for buyers. The composite benchmark price, so that's all property types combined into one metric, is up 31% from last year. It's now $1.208 million. When comparing Vancouver and Toronto, prices were about 14% different to start 2021. They finished 2021 with only a 2% gap. Toronto is very quickly going to become the most expensive place to buy a house in Canada. Interesting little tidbit, in the last 5 years, the city of Toronto, so not the GTA, just the city of Toronto, has seen the slowest price appreciation in all of Ontario. For example, last year, the GTA prices went up 31%. City of Toronto only went up 23%. There were 31% more homes sold last year in Toronto than the 5-year average, and the number of homes put up for sale was also up 7% versus the 5-year average. Another little tidbit about Toronto, 65% of all homes sold under $1 million were condos. There were 862 homes sold in Ottawa last month. That's down 14% from last year, but it is up 20% from their 5-year average, where typically about 720 homes are sold in the month. There were 600 homes newly listed for sale last month in Ottawa, but that's still down 20% from last year and down 5% from their 5-year average, where they usually see about 630 homes put up for sale in the month. There were 806 properties for sale right now. That is down 16% from last year and down 78% from the 5-year average. Normally there's about 3,600 homes for sale at this time of year in Ottawa. The months of inventory is 0.6 in Ottawa right now, down from last month 0.8, so just 2 weeks worth of inventory in Ottawa, and this is the lowest months of inventory I've seen all year in Ottawa. After a couple of months of seeing prices drop a little bit in Ottawa, they're back on the rise again. Benchmark price in Ottawa, $660,000, and that is up 14% from last year. Looking back at the year as a whole, sales were up 20% in Ottawa in 2021, and new listings were up 1%. That's versus the 5-year average. So more listings than they normally see, but way more sales. There were 3,600 homes sold last month in Montreal. That's actually down 20% from last year, but it's up 13% from their 5-year average, where normally about 3,200 homes are sold in the month. Just shy of 2,600 homes were put up for sale last month in Montreal. That's down 32% from last year and down 24% from the 5-year average, where normally there's about 3,400 homes put up for sale. There's just under 8,200 homes for sale right now in Montreal. That's down 28% from last year and down 57% from the 5-year average, where there's closer to 19,000 homes usually for sale in Montreal at this time of year. And that means months of inventory is 2.2, down from last month's 2.4. Low inventory means prices continue to rise in Montreal. Benchmark price is about $520,000 right now in Montreal, and that's up 21% from last year. For the entire year, 2021 saw 16% more homes sold than the 5-year average, and new listings were up 3% versus the 5-year average. So much like the rest of the country, a very active and busy year in the Montreal real estate market, just far more buyers than sellers. There were 412 homes sold last month in Halifax. That's actually down 27% from last year, but 75% of all those sales were over asking price. I'm actually really surprised that number isn't 100% though. There were 234 homes put up for sale last month, and that is down 31% from last year. There are 141 homes for sale right now in Halifax, a city of nearly 500,000 people, and 141 homes for sale. That's down 85% from last year. Months of inventory, 0.3, so essentially a little over a week's worth of inventory, and that is down from last month's 0.5. I have never seen a major city in Canada have this few number of homes for sale, and that's why prices are going absolutely crazy in Halifax. That average price, which a few years ago was around $300,000, now in Halifax, $483,000. That's up 33% from just last year. With so few homes for sale right now going into the spring market, I think those looking to buy a house this spring might find it even more challenging than buyers last spring. And last spring was absolutely crazy. You're of course going to have higher interest rates at some point this year, and that has people out looking for houses right now, competing with the normal spring buyer fever. How much of an impact is that going to have on the Canadian real estate market? Right here is my 2022 Canadian real estate market predictions video. I've got a couple of really bold predictions as to what I think is going to happen and how it's going to impact the real estate market. And this video right here is what the YouTube algorithm says you need to watch next on Bald Prairie Real Estate. As always, thanks very much for watching.